welcome to KC Quadtronics, and I am Oops FPV, and today on the channel we're going to be covering the ESC Configurator tool, how to install it as an app onto your PC if you would like to be able to access it offline and not have to go to the website every time, and then ultimately how to use the tool to flash your BLES ESC to BlueJay. This will work with anything from Whoop all-in-one boards all the way to 4-in-1 boards and ARM ESC, no matter what, as long as it's a BLES. So first I'm going to start out by showing you how to first get to there, and that would be by opening a browser, preferably Google Chrome, and then in that browser you need to type ESC-configurator.com and then hit enter. Once you have been brought to this page here, if you would like to install this as an app, then there's two ways now to do this, where there used to only be one way, and if you're already familiar with it, then you can go ahead and proceed. But here's the first way. Up here you'll see a little computer with a down arrow in front of it. If you hover the mouse over it, it will even say install ESC Configurator. You just click that and it'll give you the option to install this as an app. And no, it doesn't take up any room. You won't even notice it on your drive, really. You would just click install in most cases. Or now there's a new option to where if for some reason you don't have that up there, you can't access that, you just click here, and that will give you the same exact option to install this as an app. And that is exactly what I'm going to do now by clicking install. After you've clicked install, you should shortly later be presented with the actual screen here. Now, if you've made it to this point, then you need to close the other one that's in the background, or at least check and make sure it closed itself, as it has on my screen. But that isn't always the case, and you definitely want to close any extra that you have open. And definitely make sure before we get into this that you have a fan on your quad to keep the heat off of it, especially for your VTX. Unless there's some way you can put it in pit mode or something, or unplug it during this process, you're definitely going to want a fan on your quad. And be sure that your beta flight is closed and any other programs that could possibly access and cause an issue during your flashing procedure. Alright, so I'm going to close out Google Chrome in the background here and pull the actual app to the front. And so here on the app, as you can see, there is a select serial port option. Normally, if you don't have anything else plugged up that will interfere with it, normally you can just plug up your quad, and I do mean just the flight controller. You plug it up, and that should happen right there. It should pop up and be able to say connect, and 9 times out of 10 you can click connect and it'll work. But if it doesn't for some reason and you can't get it to go through when you click connect, then you'll need to open port selection. And if you've opened this and there's more than one option here, then what you need to do is unplug your flight controller, as you've seen here, and then plug it back in and watch for what disappears and then what reappears. And whichever one reappears is the one you're going to select. You're going to click on it and you're going to click connect, and then again up here you're going to actually connect to it by clicking connect again. Once you have been presented with this screen, you will then want to go down. You'll want to then take and plug up a battery to your flight controller or your quad. And again, make sure you have a fan or some type of cooling on it, especially for your VTX. You don't want to burn it up because this process will take plenty enough time to burn up a VTX. Okay, now you need to wait for your startup tones to finish, and once that is done, then once it's done reading your ESCs, and don't worry if it says it couldn't read one of these or whatever, it just means you didn't wait long enough to click read ESCs. I've done it plenty of times, still do it. Just click read ESCs again. Just click it again, and it should pop up all 4 of your ESCs. If it isn't and you're having issues, let me know. We'll try to work through it together. I'll try to help you out. But anyway, so if you have made it to this point and you're not on BlueJay yet, that's where we're going to head to. Let's go ahead and go down here to the bottom of the screen. Click Flash All ESCs. Now you'll be presented with this screen right here that says probably BLHS as the firmware and the ESC version and all that. So what you'll do is, first off, you'll click here and select BlueJay in the firmware options, and then the ESC field, you'll always leave it alone. It automatically selects that for you. But underneath that, you're going to select what version you're going to want. As we see here, this is for testing only. It's 0.20, and if you had seen on the opening screen, there was also a warning about this version, not this one specifically, but this version that was on here before. People had flashed it and it caused quite a few issues, and so they took it off and had everybody flash back to 19.2, the people that were lucky enough to, before it did any damage. And anyways, this is now the release candidate for that software again. And as you see, it's for testing. So let's be sure not select that unless you know what you're doing purposely and you're selecting that on purpose. And in that case, you won't be probably watching this for this reason, to learn about this and how to use it. You probably already know how. So anyways, next we're going to select the version here. That would be version 19.2 at the time of this video. Then you will have another field pop up here called the PWM frequency. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to select 48 kilohertz. It's going to give you just a cleaner, smoother, cooler, all-out, more enjoyable experience. And if you're doing a tiny whoop, you definitely want 48K because it's going to give you longer flight times and just the whole 9 yards. It's going to change a whole lot of things, and I use 48K on all of my quads, every single one of them. So that's my choice, and it may not be yours. You may want the extra power, not care about the extra flight time, and your motors may not get hot. And in that case, you can just keep 24. That's fine. But with 48, the flexibility is more. There's more flexibility within your ESC, and it's possible that no matter what the size, it gives you longer flight times, smoother flight, cooler motors, the whole 9 yards. But whatever you choose, next you will click Flash after you've chosen your PWM frequency. Once you've clicked Flash, I will help to remind you, you might want to have a fan or something on there, especially on your VTX at this very moment. You don't want to fry it, as it could be sitting there cooking. And as long as you've got a fan on it, you'll be okay. But sometimes this could take a lot longer. Sometimes it could be faster. And depending on what device you're doing it on, sometimes there could be a hang up where it takes it a second and where it seems like it isn't going to finish. But if you just have a fan on there and can stay on the edge of your seat long enough, you'll be okay, because I've not had this fail on me yet. And even one time, whenever it tried to fail, which was my fault, it was a USB problem, I actually fixed it by going back to the BLHS firmware, using the actual BLHS, and then flashing back to this, and flashing back to BlueJay, and I saved it. Yeah, I got in a situation where one of my ESCs wasn't noticed, and yeah, the USB had caused the update like we're doing here to fail midways. and it wasn't good. So, but there is a way to save it, and don't think that for one moment if this fails on you that all hope is lost. It is not, and just message me, leave a comment down below, and we will try to work through it together. Okay. Okay, now that all four have finished flashing, I want you to look over here on the left hand side at the options here, and I'm just going to go down through here with you and show them to you. So your minimum startup power, this is going to be good for the tiny woots, especially if it's very underpowered, low kV or something, and it's just having problems. One of the motors are having problems spinning up with the rest of your motors when you hit arm. Then you can boost this number up like 0.5 points, like that at a time, and see until you get the motor to start spinning with the rest of the motors. But that will help give your motors a little boost to get them started and going, and that's really what that helps on, especially in tiny whoop situations. Now, this number under here, you're not going to really want to tangle with that number unless you know what you're doing. Because this can cause you to blow your motors, blow your ESC, your flight controller, just the whole 9 yards. It can be very bad. Um, and they actually suggest against messing with that number unless you know what you are doing and you're fine tuning it. And in that case, this video isn't even for you probably. So next, you're going to look down here at the motor timing, which in your case, it will probably be set to medium high, which is fine. I have set mine too high because I was just having a few issues, and minus the flight time, because this will mess with the efficiency. Um, Minus the flight time, I get a little bit better of a kick and a little bit better performance out of this very underpowered motors that I'm using on this guy. But nonetheless, you'll probably want to leave this at the normal setting of medium high. Now, if you're using a Cinewhoop or something like that, you might want to set this to high, especially whenever it already gets like 8 or 9 minutes of flight anyways. And then your DMAG compensation, also you might want to set that to high depending on your situation. But in most cases, I have found that these settings right here are just fine, left at default. So that will be all depending on your specific quad and whether you're having desyncs or whatnot. I actually had pretty bad desync on my Cinewhoop at one time whenever I had threw the 6S on it, and so I had to turn these up, and it actually fixed my problem completely. So next is your RPM power protection, ramp up power. You're just going to leave that at 9x. Don't worry about that number. Just go ahead and move on. Unless you know what you're doing and you want to fine tune that specifically, in that case, you know what you're doing on that. Next is your beat strength. This is going to determine how loud your quad is whenever you first start it up. That's just going to be the music sound. So if you turn it up just a little here and there, that's fine. But be careful because it can damage your motors. It causes heat, and it can cause a little too much heat because the way it causes heat is by sending a voltage into your motors, which is what causes that high-pitched sound that you hear. It's pretty amazing, actually. So be careful. You can play with this number, but just be careful with it if you do. The beacon strength is actually the same thing, but when it beeps. This is going to be for when you lost it, and if you're using the ESC and motors as a beeper, like you would a beeper that would be hooked up to the flight controller. But in this case, you're just using, because like on tiny whoops, we don't have enough room usually to put a beeper on there, or it's too much weight. So we just turn our little beacon strength up a little bit, and we can hear it, you know, if we lose it in the grass or whatever. But be careful also with that, because you'll also damage your motors, as it states over here as well. Below that, you can adjust how long it will wait to sound off this that you have set. So in my case, I'm going to set it for 2 minutes. If it loses connection and it can't find me, for 2 minutes, it's going to start beeping by itself automatically. And it will start beeping to this number that you've set, so be careful. Because if you can't find your quad, it beeping so loud is okay, right? For a minute or two, but if it's beeping too loud for too long, that beep could be what killed it, not you losing it. So just be careful. Now, below here is your ESC power rating. This is going to be very important if you are a 1S tiny whoop only, or just a 1S. If you're a 1S board, you're going to want to select that. If your board is capable of anything over 1S, you're going to select 2S plus. But this does not matter if you don't use one. If it's a 1 to 6S board, say. I don't think there's, but if it's a 1 to 6S board and you only use 1S on it, you still want this at 2S plus. But if it's a 1S board and it's only capable of 1S, period, if you were to put 2S on it, it would blow it up, then you're going to want to select 1S, as I'm going to in this selection on this specific controller I'm using here. Next is your temperature protection. This too, I will leave it default. This is supposed to help disable your ESC. Does it if it, experiences 200 degrees Fahrenheit or whatever, but yeah, it's supposed to save your ESC from blowing itself up, but it's a work in progress for sure. Next is brake on stop, and you're just going to leave that default unless you know for sure why you are enabling that. I would leave it alone. The maximum braking strength too, you should leave that at default unless you also know why you're going to be changing that number. Now, the experimental setting is PWM dithering. I will leave that also at default, especially since we have flashed to above 24 kilohertz, which means 48 kilohertz. It just makes sure that the effective PWM resolution is set to 2,000 steps, which your transmitter is supposed to be calibrated from 1,000 to 2,000. But whether you've calibrated your transmitter up with your quad or not in Betaflight doesn't matter, because the ESC still sees that step. It still sees the 1,000 and 2,000 steps. Now, you may not be reaching the full 2,000 step if you haven't set it up properly with your transmitter, because your transmitter may not be giving a full up signal, because you do have to line those parameters up to Betaflight, which I found out. Yes, this can get complicated. So, but that's it. You're done as far as configuring your new ESC firmware. Next, you're going to want to go over here and hit Right Settings. And when you're done, I want to take note of something. Over here, you probably see Open Melody Editor on my end. That's probably not going to show up for you yet. If it does, congratulations. Go ahead and go to it and stand by. If it doesn't, you're going to want to hit disconnect and then reconnect without unplugging anything. Just disconnect. Here, I'll even do it. Disconnect, reconnect, resetting. It should just reread everything, and it should just... Now, see there, it failed to read my ESC. See, it failed to read the first one. Now, I'm going to hit read again. Now, what's this? There we go. Perfect example of what I was talking about. It failed, but then I hit read again, and it read it just fine. Now, you should see Open Melody Editor right here. You're going to want to click Open Melody Editor. Make sure you're not clicking Restore Default unless you want to. So click Open Melody Editor. It'll probably look something like this, and all you're going to want to do is just click Synchronize Melodies, unless you want a different sound on each motor. That would just be wild. And it actually doesn't sound that great unless you are, it's your art, so you can create it how you want it. But if you just want it all synced up, you just want to click up here on the left hand side, right here. And once they're synced, there'll be one box there. You're going to select the melody through the list, or you can also input your own, like I've done here. Like I've got Back to the Future. You're going to click over here. You can click play to preview it. And if you want it, you just hit accept and then write melodies at the bottom, and you wait for that accept and write melodies to pop back up, because that means it's done once you there. Now it's finished. Now you can hit close, and if you're finished here, you can go over your settings one last time, as I will here. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to set this to high. There we go. Set it like that. You're going to want to hit your right settings again and hit disconnect, and that is it. You have now successfully flashed BlueJay to your BLHeli ESC. And before you go, could I just remind you, if you haven't already, to just hit that thumbs up for me and smash that subscribe button and notification bell, and you'll be notified of any more upcoming content and future events that we may have on the channel. And I hope this has helped you with anything that you needed to do today. And if you have any questions, comments, or otherwise, please leave it down below in the comment section, or feel free to email me. And I look forward to seeing you all in the sky, and I hope this has helped you. I hope this continues to help you all out there. And I will see you all on the next one.